Hello, I'm Friday. Sorry I took so long to get here. I know you've been working hard all week, but now that I'm here, you can finally enjoy a 6-inch tuna sandwich for just $3.79 at Subway restaurants. It's the sub of the day, and it's a different 6-inch sub each day for $3.79. So enjoy your casual wear at work today. Friday has arrived. Subway, make it what you want. At participating restaurants, additional charge for extras, plus applicable tax. No additional discounts or coupons may be applied.
Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome, everybody, to Somewhere in Vegas here on blogtalkradio.com. I am Mark the Q. I am your host. We're also now on Speaker Radio. I should mention that as well. We are making a huge transition coming up into 2019, so be on the lookout for that. Right now, we have a very cool guy. He's a fashion photographer. He owns his own digital magazine as well called Regard Magazine over in Los Angeles as well, and online and digitally as well. Dimitry Loiseau is on with us now. Did I pronounce your last name correctly?
You completely butchered it, but it's all good, though. I appreciate the love. No, Dimitry Loiseau. It's Dimitry Loiseau, yeah. Yes. I appreciate it. Yeah. We're just talking before we went on the air about the Regards sports issue, which is very interesting. Misha Tate, who's a good friend of mine, was featured a couple years ago on that as well, and you guys do it right in the summer during the ESPYs and kind of shoot it early on in the year as well. Tell me a little bit about getting the idea of doing a sports issue like that and having the ability to shoot famous athletes. Yeah, for us, well, first of all, I appreciate you having me on and definitely looking forward to the conversation. With respect to having a sports issue, athletes are larger than life personalities. They a lot of the times can do things that the average person can't. And, you can go to acting school and, maybe even have a little bit of that talent within you and kind of develop that, as you go along. But to be an athlete, it's something that is pretty special. And, when you look at all the various sports, whether they're the mainstream ones like basketball, football, baseball, and now even, MMA being one of those mainstream sports, it's amazing what these individuals, these men and women are able to accomplish with their bodies. And, just the fact, just the resiliency that they have to do it over and over and over again is somewhat, it really truly is impressive. And so for us, expanding our audience, we just wanted to be able to cover athletes in a fashionable way, of course, being a fashion publication. And so that way people who have their favorite athletes can see them in a different light.
Quite a few athletes out there now, are very fashionable. They dress a certain way. They talk a certain way. They go out on the red carpets and stuff like that. I know Misha does quite a few red carpets on her own, but a lot of these celebrities, even some of the football players and all that as well, have also got a kind of an eye for fashion. Some of them have their own fashion lines. How's it for you to kind of shoot some of these people in terms of, having an acute fashion sense in terms of their dress?
Yeah, for us, it's really, we have a very organic approach to the photo shoots that we do. And it's really all about capturing the essence of every individual that we have for the features. And, they all have their own individual swags and their own individual styles. And, of course, we try to keep things on brand for us, but also, respecting the facts of their own fashion sense. So I think you can see that quite beautifully done, in the pages of the magazine with the athletes that we've had. Some of the different ones we've done, Terrell Owens, we've done Derek Fisher, we've had CJ Lana Perry, who's a WWE superstar, of course, Misha Tate, and other people as well, too. So, within those fashion editorials, you can kind of see their own personalities come out in those things, and yet, their own, personal sense of style.
And with that in mind, how much, I'm pretty sure in that issue, obviously there's a little bit of, creative stuff on your end, but, how much does the athlete have to say, if they have a certain location that they felt probably would be better, or is it something that you guys scout out, or is it a little bit of a combination of both?
Yeah, we keep it very easy. Typically we are either going to be shooting in the talent's home or residence because a lot of times they feel a lot more comfortable there. Sometimes we might be shooting at a venue. Like, for example, with Misha, we shot at the Cosmo Hotel there in Las Vegas. Beautiful hotel, obviously. And so it just kind of depends on the kind of aesthetic that we're trying to bring out and, what kind of flair that we want for that particular issue. But, yeah, it definitely is, I would say, we're pretty well-oiled machine, but we definitely, leave some room open to make it a true collaborative effort as well.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about your background. I mean, how did you get into photography?
I kind of fell upon photography, to tell you the truth. I was actually in my third year undergrad going to med school, and something just did not click. And long story short, I went on vacation, took some pictures, came back with a picture, shared it with some friends. Friends thought they were great, and I just felt like that was maybe my calling. And so, after investing time and energy and resources, into having that as a hobby, it quickly developed into a career, and that's kind of where we are right now. But I've been working in this business as a photographer now for the past 15 years. And I've been blessed and very fortunate to work with some amazing people along the way.
I mean, did you start off with traditional film camera, or were you using digital at that time?
No, digital was definitely on the rise. Film was definitely on its decline. I believe back in the mid 2000s was when Kodak actually stopped making film. And so any film that Kodak had, because they were one of the largest manufacturers of film, was basically what was already in the stores. They weren't actually manufacturing it. That was the time also where, Apple and Steve Jobs, were changing things digitally from a music perspective with the iPhones and things like that, iTunes. And so, for me, I just felt like, it was best to kind of jump on it, as the train was going up, as opposed to trying to catch up with, because as you can see, technology moves very, very quickly. And so it's definitely a decision that I'm very happy with. I did shoot film early on, but not much of it where I can say that I was an expert in it as much as I am in digital. But, it's definitely been a blessing. There's a gift and a curse to having the film as well as, doing it digitally as well too.
Yeah, when I was in film school in the 90s, I mean, that was when they were phasing out a lot of film movie cameras. They were going down to, the only real like film that you could use is 35 millimeter. Everything else was kind of being phased out.
Right.
And we were kind of in that transition period where we were starting to do digital editing. So it was, I feel what you're talking about. We ended up doing that transition and all that as well. So, and they're kind of preparing us in school for that transition. We were doing nonlinear editing on computers back then. So it's a lot has changed since I even went to school. So it's kind of crazy to think that was just a couple decades ago, and now it's not. It's not necessarily. I think some people still do it. I have a cousin that actually still does film photography, but it's kind of rare almost to see that anymore and see that content. But there's just so many advantages to digital photography nowadays.
Oh, absolutely. And, and the other thing too is that, things are moving so quickly at a fast pace that if you don't have the digital platform, you're really at a disadvantage, And again, this is not any knock against anyone like your cousin who still does film. I think that there certainly is a platform for that, especially if you have the flexibility of time and, you can afford to do that. But even with what clients' needs are on, commercially and even for magazines, like people want things right away, they've even built cameras now that have Wi-Fi features on it where you can go directly and post into Facebook or post onto other social platforms. And so the immediacy of technology is really, just force everyone to kind of just, kind of go about face with that. And the other advantages is that, you can quickly fix any mistakes, or you can make adjustments on the fly when you can kind of see it right away. You don't have to pull out a Polaroid in order to do that, so there definitely are some benefits to it for sure.
Yeah, and that's crazy. I mean, just to think, that you can do that really instantly. And there's so many things that you can do nowadays on a computer to enhance a photo, to
right.
make shadows and light make a little bit of difference as well. I mean, it's kind of crazy to think that how much that is as well, and how much that stuff is enhanced as well. I mean, how is it for you? I mean, obviously there's the advantage of having the ability to fix things, relatively quickly and that as well. But, how is it for you in terms of, just shooting a shot and then maybe, I mean, you got to have that balance between what looks natural and kind of, tweaking what, certain little things to make the portrait much better. But how's that for you to kind of balance that?
Yeah, that's actually a really great question. We live in an age where filters are the norm, whether they're filters for selfies or filters for images that people take. I think at the end of the day, it kind of just depends on, the audience that you have and, what they call for. If you have a certain, every photographer has their own style. There are some black and white, photographers. There are photographers that use high saturated colors. The same goes for example, when you're watching television shows. I remember watching like CSI, and CSI has like these high saturated colors where the greens and were so aqua looking, or, the blues were like really deep and things like that. And that's what people were used to seeing when they were watching that television show. So I think for me, really, when shooting portraits of individuals, I think it's very important to maintain the dignity of the individual, so that way it actually looks like that person, but is also aesthetically pleasing, because that's what the audience is looking for, And so I think that we do a really good job at making sure that we not only enhance the photos, but that it's in the wheelhouse of what the person truly does look like, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and you talked about early on that you took some pictures, and you got some really good criticism about that you could possibly do this for a living. Were those landscapes or were those portraits?
Those are actually landscapes. It's the funniest thing in life, how things just kind of come around, and the old adage of, the circle of life. Those were just landscapes that I took while I was traveling in the Bahamas. And it's funny how, now I've been, especially in the last 6 months, I've been traveling a lot, countries, and doing more and more like travel photography. So, I think the portrait is something that, I love travel photography, and I will certainly continue to do it. But there's something about portraits that always speak to me, because you're dealing with real life people, And, people tell their stories on their faces, the expression on the eyes, the lines that they may have on their faces and things like that. And so that in itself will never go away.
Yeah, and like I said, there is a difference between, doing a landscape photography versus a portrait photography. And portrait, I don't know about you, but for me it's a little bit more work, because you want to, you do want to make sure that you're getting a great shot of a person, and making sure that they look at their best, and there's certain little tweaks
right.
we could do to do that as well. So, it's one of those things. How was it for you to make that transition over, and just how, obviously, are you always learning about certain things that you can do in terms of portraits?
Yeah, I think I've always had the ability, and I would say, I guess, the gift of, being able to be in tune with people. And that's the approach that I have to my photography. I almost never plan a photo shoot, because to me, when you're shooting someone, you're trying to capture the essence of that individual. And especially if you've never met that individual before, there's really no amount of planning that can account for how that person is going to be feeling that particular day, in that moment, you know. And so, again, I have a very organic approach to how I shoot. And in a matter of a few minutes, I know exactly what angles to shoot from,